Bobby Iki Anarcha here, and in this video I would like to talk about my experiences with the anti-social justice community, why I left that community, why I feel that certain aspects of that community in the early days are still worth discussing, and how that community was derailed, and how the pro-social justice community can avoid certain of those potholes. So, needless to say, this is very likely not going to be a short video. Now, from an early age, I was your, fairly standard, U.S. progressive with some slight conservative in the American sense, sympathies regarding, the purchase and use of guns, and, the Constitution. So, basically, I was a mix of a neoliberal and a classical liberal, though at the time I did not know what either of those terms meant, as most Americans do not. And, as far as feminism, I was not that well educated on the subject, but I initially supported it just because, a lot of my teachers were feminists, and no, it wasn't anything that was pushed on me before any anti-SJ types wanna rush in here and, make that accusation. No, I just naturally adopted that because that's how young people tend to learn things, by taking example from elder people around them. Right, it's only as you grow up, once you reach puberty, that you sort of start to question the basic narratives that everybody around you is believing, right? So, yeah, I don't want to go into too much personal shit, but yeah, and like, there were also factors in my life that sort of pushed me down a certain road. For instance, like my father is somewhat of a womanizer, and he's a liberal, but he's like an old-fashioned 1950s style liberal. Both my parents are. Though my mom is a little more left-leaning and socially conscious and um politically active than my dad is. However, they're both liberals, and for much of my early life, I was as well. Well, and I've always been very eco-conscious. I've always been very um um I mean, like, I was somewhat skeptical of affirmative action, but not out of any sort of racism, but rather simply because I feel that affirmative action keeps minorities in dependency to the white establishment. Um, and like eventually I started questioning the religious views I was brought up with, and of course that also led me to question the political views I was brought up with, largely in conjunction with those. Um, so, like, I've always been pro-choice, but, like, I started gradually to become, like, more radically pro-choice to the point that I, at one point was, like a full-on, anti-natalist type, and obviously I look back on that particular phase of my life now and cringe, but that's sort of what certain rabbit holes I fell down eventually led me to take up. Also, there was a time when I was like a moderate left social democrat, and then I got into the whole right libertarian scene. Like, I didn't go like full pro free market or anything of that nature, thank God. However, I was very critical of like even the most, innocuous uh regulations upon the economy. I and even though I wasn't racist, I would be very defensive of friends and family who did express like racist and anti-Semitic views, and sometimes I would even join in for edge points, which is ironic, of course, because now I know I am of Jewish and Middle Eastern descent. However, oh, and, yeah, as for the MRM, the thing to know about the MRM is that it, was founded by a dude who used to be a second wave feminist, but, ultimately felt that second wave feminists were not properly addressing men's issues, which in many cases they were not, and a lot of the things that the MRM early on pointed out about custody custody cases being rigged towards women, alimony being rigged towards women, and things of that nature. There's some merit to those complaints. I mean, now obviously the conspiracy theories that they engage in about the American mainstream being rigged against men in general, and cultural Marxists and bullshit like that. That's just fear-mongering bullshit, and the funny thing is, a lot of these individuals will claim to be empiricists and rationalists, and yet they fall for all these far-right and center-right conspiracy theories in the name of, tolerance and impartiality and objectivity. you know, like, and I'm someone who is not afraid to admit when the right has a point on a particular subject. However, the the way these people do it, it's like they have no fucking standards of evidence whatsoever. It's like the right could say any inflammatory or incredulous bullshit whatsoever, and these people would just let it slide because the left is scarier somehow. Right, because some people being called racist who aren't necessarily intending to be racist, but maybe they have some sort of subconscious racism they're not aware of, getting called out for that is so much worse than our culture, like, imprisoning black people at insane rates, than our culture racially profiling Muslims en masse, than anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism being conflated, even though most of Israel's ruling class are not even like that much Semitic. They're more Khazarian and Germanic than anything else, really. I mean, not that I care, but um, but it. But the fact that people who used to claim to be all about reason and empiricism are now defending conspiracy buffs and literal fucking Christian fundamentalists, simply because um because they think that feminists and socialists are a bigger problem for some fucking reason. It's just ridiculous, man. Um, but, I, would be lying if I, said that I did not see this coming, and that I don't share some of the guilt for, like, creating this sort of toxic environment around the internet. And Of course, that is not what I was intending to do, and many of the things that I used to say I now consider absolutely abhorrent. However, I knew that 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 even though I deleted much of what I said from those days, that does not undo the harm certain of those remarks may have caused, and I genuinely apologize for that. I mean, like, I was in a very vulnerable position in my life at that point, and there was a lot of confusion, and a lot of toxic people took advantage of that sort of, um, to sort of like, you know, at one point, mock me for my being on the spectrum, at another point, make me feel like a powerful alpha male, at another point, anytime I said anything perceived as even remotely charitable towards feminists, I would be called a beta and a white knight and shit like that. And there was a time when, like, I would call people betas and blue pills and manginas, myself, just to be accepted, and again, I am really sorry for that. And I'm really sorry for all the, like, racist, sexist, and homophobic jokes that I used to that I used to like tell in the comments section for edge points. And yeah, like, when you're in something that big, when you're in a community that claims to provide easy answers to difficult questions, it is easy to become tempted to do things you wouldn't otherwise do in a million years. And of course, like whilst there were other people around me, encouraging and enabling me to do all these toxic things, ultimately, what I did and what I said, that that was harmful to other human beings, the unsubstantiated allegations I participated in, I am responsible for, and once again, I apologize for those things. And it is my hope that this video will help illuminate some of the things that led the anti-SJ community, which started out with genuinely good intentions and genuine humanitarian concerns, and was transformed over time by very ugly social conditions and very manipulative and hateful people into a place to hate women, minorities, non-whites, etc. As a movement grows, it can either choose to broaden its base or narrow its base. And the anti-social justice movement very much elected to narrow its base, right? So, how it started out, there were liberals, there were libertarians in the American sense, there were conservatives, there were social democrats, there were even a few Marxists, there were anarchists, there were ANCAPs, there were objectivists, there were all sorts of people. There were atheists, there were black people, Hispanic people, mixed people, women, and over time, they started to narrow their base to cis-het white Christian males and new atheist types. Which I also used to be involved in and am no longer for much of the same reasons. This has been Bobby, aka Anarcha Media. Liberty, equality, fraternity, goodbye.